Hi, I'm Karen and I'm from a large family group in Australia with cryopyrin-associated periodic syndrome. Our mutation is A439V and there's quite a difference in how we present, so we're a mixed bag of FCAS and Muckle-Wells syndrome. Here's our family tree. One generation before this, my great-great-great-grandparents arrived in South Australia in 1853 from Froxfield, Wiltshire in England. We don't know how far back our NLRP3 mutation goes, but we can say with confidence that it spans at least 5 generations that you can see here. You can see that we have 8 members in our family now living with a doctor-confirmed CAPS diagnosis, represented by the dark blocks. We did have 9, but my dad died in 2020. There are at least 4 more who 100% have CAPS, but are not interested in seeing any more doctors or having daily injections. If this mutation started with my great-grandfather up there in the second row, then we know what we're dealing with here in terms of numbers. But if he inherited it from one of his parents up there at the top, and half of his 9 siblings that you can see in row 2 were affected, we could still be looking at the tip of the iceberg in our family group. Given that we know another local Australian family with the exact same mutation as us, it does seem pretty likely that there are still many more down here living a difficult life with this mutation and no diagnosis. Our whole family was diagnosed after the data was collected for this 2016 Australian epidemiology paper where they described 18 cases and predicted 1 in a million prevalence. So our family alone has already blown their estimate. We've all been sick for years. Before we found out we had CAPS, these are some of the diseases that we've been diagnosed with over our lives. Idiopathic urticaria, gluten allergy, rheumatism, arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, ulcerative colitis, migraine, cluster headaches, anxiety, iron deficiency anemia, melanoma, appendicitis, iritis, glaucoma, bone crippling disease, Sjogren's syndrome, herpes, and gout. I was investigated for gout when I was a kid in the 70s, but the doctor just said, only old men who drink stout get gout. As late as 2016, with a copy of my cousin's NLRP3 mutation in my hand, a rheumatologist told me that the chances of having this genetic mutation are like winning the lottery. I would be very lucky. Earlier that same year, I'd seen a general physician about my rash and debilitating fatigue, and he suggested that I should restructure my daily activities so as not to overexhaust myself, and that if I needed to push through, I should try an energy drink. Why didn't I think of that? Another family member was told by a rheumatologist that she was being ridiculous thinking she might have something like lupus. He told her she was a healthy woman who should go and enjoy life and stop worrying about imaginary problems. So many doctors and specialists told us it was all in our head, and we knew it wasn't, but we'd generally just given up on the idea of getting any kind of help from doctors, and nobody wanted to go and waste more money just to get dismissed or insulted by specialists. As you might have seen in our family tree, it was 2013 when my second cousin was the first one of us correctly diagnosed. Amazingly, one of the doctors in the immunology team at the Royal Melbourne Hospital recognised the constellation of symptoms. Without that first diagnosis, the rest of us would all be to this day struggling with our symptoms and doing our best to avoid doctors. That first family member to be diagnosed was lucky enough not to experience the negative doctoring that had plagued past generations. One of the researchers said, of all the crazy rare mutations in the world to get, this one is probably one of the best. The biochemical pathway is very clear and the treatments are practically a magic bullet. Imagine hearing that. Well, the treatment might not be a magic bullet. We can't wait to get our hands on those NLRP3 inhibitors, but it makes me feel hopeful to think that future generations won't have to put up with what we did. Because this is a difficult disease to live with, and we've been doing it here down under for a really long time. My cousins in Victoria speak very highly of the immunology clinic at the Royal Melbourne Hospital. The doctors there are collaborative, they listen and are focused on patient care. It would be great if the RMH clinic model could be implemented in other states so that others can receive the same standard of care.